Welcome back to the Momentum Sports Podcast. Derek, are you ready to talk about Ohio State and Oregon?
Oh yes, let's get it on. Let's get it on.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit. Let's go over the game, what we think of both teams, and kind of the expectation for both sides moving forward. Like, what do we expect from Oregon moving forward? Where do we think they're at? And then the same thing for Ohio State. What do we think Ohio State is after this game, and where do you think they should be at? But let's kind of start with the game itself. Thoughts of just everything that transpired. What did you think of the game?
Well, here's the thing. I knew one thing. I knew that Oregon had a sloppy start.
Mm,
But here's the one thing I heard from a lot of people. What I heard who Ohio State was playing, that they had a solid defense. They had a solid offense. They were all around team. But we found out that Oregon exposed that defense, especially in the deep ball. And when they threw in the deep balls in the first half, they
yep.
exposed a lot. That was a lot of their points came from were deep balls. And in the second half, Ohio State decided to adjust to that and bring back safeties, and then they started running, and then they started throwing short passes, getting good gains on those, and exposed that. So it tells you that maybe Ohio State isn't as strong on defense as we thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. I was I was really on the Ohio State bandwagon for a little bit about how much talent they had, the coaching staff, everything. Like you were saying, I heard about
Mhm.
how great the defense is, or it was supposed to be, and honestly, it was just kind of disappointing watching it all unfold with what I expected from Ohio State. And props to Oregon. I thought that they had a great game plan. The atmosphere was insane, and like you were saying, that they figured out Ohio State's weakness and just kept throwing the deep ball. And that's something about Big Ten schools is there's not a whole lot of passing offenses that are really,
Mhm.
really good at it. Yes, you can pass the ball if you're in the Big Ten, but like you don't have gunslingers in the Big Ten generally. And this is a Pac-12 school, until this year. This was an ex Pac-12 school that can really sling it, and it really exposed those Big Ten DBs in Ohio State. So, Ohio State needs to learn how to close out ball games too. If they're in
Mhm.
another close ball game at the end, I'm concerned if I'm an Ohio State fan, because that management at the end of the game, getting a minute and 44 seconds, I think it was, and going down the field, they just got sloppy there at the end. They let the clock run after a penalty. Then and by the way, whenever there's a penalty on the offense, the clock is able to run, or they're not able to run, but the clock will run. If it's on defense, there's different rules for the clock management and things like that. But uh, Will Howard, what was he doing sliding at the end of the game? Um, just really poor execution on Ohio State's end. And yeah, after this, I think a lot of things got exposed for Ohio State, and I'm not really sure that they are that juggernaut team that everybody was kind of expecting preseason.
Well, you gotta understand, it's West Coast offense that was played by Oregon.
Yeah.
That's what brings the deep balls in and all the passing like that. That's
Right,
West
that's what I
Coast.
was saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's not in the Big 10. That's not something that Ohio State is used to playing in the Big 10.
You better start learning because you got USC, you got Oregon.
Yeah, you hear that,
They're always
guys? Y'all
gonna
better
play
start
that.
learning.
Here's the thing: you want to be a champion, you gotta learn to capitalize. You can't learn to capitalize.
Yep.
Well, guess what? You're just gonna be left behind.
And Penn
Survival of the
State,
fittest, right?
Yeah, and Penn State was the same thing. They got exposed against USC. Penn State ended up winning that game, but it was the same kind of thing that these Big Ten defenses have a hard time against teams that can really sling the ball. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting just to kind of see what happens next for Ohio State. They're not going to be playing. It doesn't look like that they're going to be playing the same type of offense that they faced with Oregon again. They played Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, at Northwestern, Indiana, Michigan. None of those teams can sling the ball near the same way that Oregon can. And that may actually really hurt Ohio State in the playoffs. Um, it's just you got to get that figured out, and you got to get the end of game management figured out. And this just seems to be a consistent thing with Ryan Day. He can't close out these big games. So,
Yep.
mm-hmm. Um, well,
Find a way
let's
to
go to
win.
the Oregon side of things. Let's kind of praise them a little bit. Um, like you were saying, they slung the ball. They played very smart. They outcoached Ohio State, and they finished that ball game. Unlike Ohio State, I still am a little bit. Um, I don't know what I think of Oregon yet. They've had some slow starts to early in their schedule, and yes, they did outcoach Ohio State, but this was kind of their Super Bowl, and it
Mhm.
was at home. It was packed. I don't know if I'm ready to say that they're the real contenders for like a natty or anything like that, because that is what some people are thinking, that this was basically kind of a national championship type of matchup here. And
Yep.
I'm just not convinced about Oregon just yet. And let's see if there are. So they kind of have a similar schedule ahead of them. They play Purdue. They go to or they host Illinois. They play Michigan, Maryland. They go to Wisconsin. They host Washington. I think that there's a good chance Oregon wins out here. Um, it's very
Mhm.
likely, I think, but I just don't know. I don't know. There's just something about Oregon where they always come close, but they never finish the deal.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Oregon, they're West Coast. Their defense was exposed too. Yes, Ohio State has a great offense. They have a great receiver as well.
Yeah,
But the fact is you can't let a team do that if you want to win a championship. You have to
right.
have defense, and in the end, defense wins championships. And I
Mm-hmm.
did not see that against Ohio State. Now it could be based on a caliber team, probably, but we
Yeah,
won't know.
that's a
In
good
the end,
point.
in the end, I think it'll be Ohio State and Oregon in the champ. I mean, Ohio State and Oregon in the Big Ten championship. They will both go
Mm-hmm.
into the playoffs. That's for sure. Depending who wins that game will depend who gets the bye. So,
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a really good point about offense and defense. You've got to have a good defense to win a championship. You can possibly get to the championship with offense alone, like that's the absolute furthest. But if you don't have a solid defensive squad, you're not going to win the whole thing. And you may win
yep.
a couple big games. You may even win a playoff game with just offense alone. But you've got to be able to be good on the defensive side of the ball. All the great teams are, and I just don't know if that's Oregon's identity yet. So
Hmm.
that's why I'm a little skeptical. I definitely think Oregon is a top 5 team as of right now. I think that they're doing really well. Um, but if the goal here is national championship, which I think it should be, I think as an Oregon fan, you know what you got coming back. You just beat Ohio State. Like you want to get near or at that national championship game. I would think now. Like that should be the expectation now after watching them beat Ohio State.
Oh yeah.
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 Well, do you want to add anything else about kind of what we expect from both fan bases here before we close this one out, Derek?
I have nothing else to add. I think it was a very offensive game, no defense, and hopefully they work on that and see what happens throughout the rest of the season.
All right. Well, I guess with that, yeah, I want to say I agree with Derek here. I think that both teams will probably win out and play in the Big Ten championship. Derek, real quick, who do you think will win in the second matchup?
I think it'll be Ohio State. I think they clean things up.
Mm-hmm.
That close a game is going to be hard for Oregon to win.
Yep.
And for a bit there, Oregon, I mean, Ohio State was showing the better team
Mm-hmm.
at the first, you know.
Yep. I felt the same way. All right. Well, guess with that, let's close this thing out. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you got this far, please throw a like on the video. Subscribe to our channel if you want to see more of our takes on some of these games. Derek likes whenever you guys hit that notification bell as well so that you get notified when we drop a new video. However, if you don't want to get notified, you don't want to deal with all the notifications on your phone, you can still just hit that subscribe button. You're not going to get notifications. You will still be able to see our videos, and it helps get our channel out there. And, you know, comment down below and let us know your thoughts on the game, where you think Oregon may end up later in the future, or Ohio State as well. Do you think both of these teams are national championship bound? Will they meet in the national championship? Will they meet in the Big Ten championship? What's going to happen? Give your takes down below. Thanks for watching, guys.